hello, and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. Thank you for tuning in today. Hello to those of you that are on our Facebook pages at Baxter Professional Services and the Nurse Shark Academy, and also to those of you that are following us on our YouTube channel, the Nurse Shark Academy, and maybe those that are on our website as well that are watching us. Thank you for tuning in today. We want to start with our affirmation for today on this May 1st, 2024. All right, so I'm excited about this. May 1st, and it says, joy permeates every part of my being. I am dancing on air. Joy permeates every part of my being. I am dancing on air. And that's from the Louise Hayes calendar. All right, I just wanted to hop in with a few announcements really quick before we get started with the news. First thing off, I just wanted to share an interesting story of what happened to me today. So right before we got on the air, I had a meeting, and I thought after the meeting, I said I got just enough time to have a quick snack. And so I've been into this s'mores thing. Don't judge me, but I wanted to have some s'mores. So I made some s'mores, and because I like to have the chocolate a little melty, I put it in the microwave for about 20 seconds, which in hindsight, I probably should have done it for like 10. So anyway, so I'm eating my s'mores and enjoying my s'mores, and chocolate drips down my shirt. And so I had to do a quick change, throw this other shirt in the wash, and throw a shirt on that I just happened to have down here at the office from a coffee incident that happened before. And so I in this shirt, and I learned some trials with having longer hair. I'm letting my hair grow out. Those of you know me and see me in person, I'm letting my hair grow out. Well, because I'm letting my hair grow, I forgot that I had longer hair, and now I had marshmallow and chocolate in my hair as well. So that brought us to be a little bit late hopping on today for just that reason. So just a note to yourself, don't make s'mores before you go on air. Unless you want to have chocolate on your shirt and in your hair. So just a little fun for today. Our other big announcement is, and the biggest announcement is that I've decided that I know I've been announcing having the challenge next week for Nurses Week, and I really don't feel like it's ready. Full disclosure, there's been so much going on that I felt like I couldn't do what I wanted to do for that challenge. So I'm going to change it up a bit. And so next week we will be going live. I'm going to choose the day and I'm going to put it out there. We'll be going live on our YouTube channel, our Facebook, the Nurse Shark Academy Challenge group will be going live there, and then we'll also be going live on LinkedIn. And we'll be doing that next week, sometime during Nurses Week. But I wanted to make sure that I had a time to really get the challenge to where I wanted it to be, and it's not ready. And I don't like to put things out there that are half done. I wanted to be ready for you to go. So we'll have instead a live show / webinar, and we'll talk about some things, and we'll get that together for you next week. So just be tuned in for that. But also, because it is Nurses Week, there is something extra special that we will be doing. Is that last year I had the opportunity to interview some of the members of the Black Nurses of Anderson. So the Black Nurses Association of Anderson Incorporated. I had a chance to interview some of those nurses to learn about the history of the organization. And so that's going to be a special podcast episode next week. So be on the lookout for that when it drops, because that's going to be in celebration of Nurses Week. And then lastly, for Nurses Week, I'm going to do a special on our Spiritual Renewal for Nurses workbook. And for next week, when you get the coupon code, and it's going to be Nurse 24, all capital letters, Nurse 24. That's going to be the coupon code. And starting next week, you'll be able to get a copy of that for free. And you can also head on over and get the video for the Spiritual Renewal as well, if you want to do that. So that's at the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. So I wanted to handle a few of those announcements at the beginning. And we'll also announce it and talk about it again at the end for those of you who may tune in a little bit late. And don't forget, you can always catch the replays on our show, on our YouTube channel. All right, so here we go. Let's get into the news because it's a lot. It's a lot to cover. All right, so first story is nursing home administrator surrenders her license. Facility has been cited for 114 violations in 19 months. So this is coming out of Iowa. And I bring this up not because I'm going to throw this person under the bus. That's not why. I bring it up because I want us to understand what's going on in our industry and how we can avoid these things. If you're an administrator and you're watching this is serious business. And I don't know what's going on with Iowa, but Iowa posts about everything that happens in these nursing homes online. It's out there. So again, I don't know what's happening in Iowa, but these are cautionary tales for us. Look for those gaps in your services and how you can avoid these things happening. But let's get into it. So it says the former administrator at one Iowa's most troubled nursing home has agreed to surrender her license in a rare disciplinary action. And I want to say that is rare because this is the first time in a long time I've heard of this, other than those cases, excuse me, we covered during the P word, where in Louisiana, where they were putting people in warehouses. But I digress. Excuse me. So it says, in a rare disciplinary action, the Iowa Board of Nursing Home Administrators earlier this month charged Tara Berenson, I think it's Berenson, of Eagle Grove, who ran the Aspire of Gowrie care facility in Webster County in 2022, with violating the standards of her profession. So the nursing home administrators, the Board of Nursing Home Administrators, they said she violated her standard of her professions. At the same time, the charges were publicly filed. The board agreed to accept Berenson's decision to resolve the case by voluntarily surrendering her license. The board action has no immediate practical effect as Berenson's license expired in December of 2023. However, in order to have her license reinstated, Berenson will now have to show that such action would be in the public interest. So the board charges were based in part on an October 2022 state inspection at the 46-bed Aspire of Gowrie. That inspection resulted in citations for failing to provide residents with a safe environment, failure to prevent inappropriate sexual activity between residents, failure to ensure staff was trained spotting and reporting dependent adult abuse, and failing to ensure all workers were subjected to a background check, failure to ensure the staff was skilled and competent, and failure to ensure a nurse was on duty at least 8 hours per day. 2 months later, the facility was cited for additional violations, including failure to correct the previous cited deficiencies and failure to provide the staff with personal protective equipment as they cared for residents diagnosed with COVID-19. Between January 2017 and March of 2023, the Iowa Board of Nursing Home Administrators publicly sanctioned only 3 administrators, despite state inspectors citing facilities for numerous violations tied directly to the administrators' actions. And so in saying that, whatever happened in the full case, it must have been egregious for them to do this and for her to just surrender her license. It says the violations were tied to physical abuse, unwarranted evictions, falsification of records, and patient dumping. The facility was fined for a death and fined $197,230 since Berenson's departure from Aspire of Gowrie in January 2023. The home has continued to be cited for violations. Currently, it is one of 2 Iowa nursing homes on the federal government's list of special focus facilities, which are some of the worst facilities in the nation. Aspire of Gowrie has been on the list for 7 months. The most recent incident at the Gowrie home involves a resident who choked to death on his dinner in early January. The staff at the home was aware that the man was at risk of choking and had given him the Heimlich maneuver on 3 prior occasions. That sounds, so curious to see what happened. In addition to being cited for the resident's death, Aspire of Gowrie was cited for numerous other violations, including a strong, offensive urine odor in one area of the building. A maintenance worker told inspectors he was aware of the smell, but the facility did not have the budget to buy the cleaners to get the smell out. So this is where we're having those problems and those discussions and talks again about how nursing homes are funded, what's happening with this. And so that brings up a lot of questions. And partially, I'm thinking, I don't know how much those cleansers would cost, but I bet they were a lot cheaper than $197,230. Just saying. The home was also cited for a failure to ensure all residents were seen by a physician once every 60 days, failure to ensure residents were given at least 2 showers per week. Wow. Failure to respond appropriately to residents injured in falls, failure to respond appropriately to residents' weight loss, and failure to offer or provide residents with their full meals and their nighttime snacks. So it sounds like there's a boatload of issues going on in this building. So it says since October of 22, Aspire of Gowrie has been cited for 114 quality of care violations and been the focus of 26 complaints. On several occasions in the past 2 years, Aspire of Gowrie has been cited for the same serious Class 1 violation, failure to provide a safe environment for residents. The safety violations were tied to a failure to protect residents from sexual abuse, squirting glue rather than eye drops into a resident's eye. Wait, what? Inoperable door alarms and the January 5th choking death. Okay. I don't know what's going on in this facility. Glue? So that means the person who is giving it, the nurse or the medical assistant or whoever, the QMA, medication aide, probably didn't read what they were doing. If they were the one who administered it. I'm just like, what? So, why am I not surprised? Federal records indicate that the home is a for-profit venture owned by Black Hawk Healthcare, a limited liability corporation, and that Bruce Wortham of Beacon Health Management in Tampa, Florida, owns 100% of the company and exerts managerial and operational control of the home. Court records indicate that in 2021, Beacon purchased a 10-facility Pear Valley chain of Iowa nursing homes for $24.2 million. The entity that brokered the deal said the homes were generating $35 million in annual revenue, with cash profits totaling $3.5 million per year. At this time, a state nursing home regulator named Todd Frank was recruited by Beacon to head the company's Iowa operations. Court records indicate Frank then left his $89,000 per year job as deputy administrator of the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals Health Facilities to join Beacon at an annual salary of $150,000. So there you go. If you want to check this out of the Iowa Dispatch, check out what's going on. But again, no surprise there. Private equity firms purchasing these buildings, siphoning off the profits and not giving enough for patient care. We've said it before. All right, let's move on. Okay, this is coming out of Arkansas, and I am sharing this because I want us nurses to pay attention to what happens to your license. And I am also going to say that if you don't have identity theft protection in place, holler at your girl. I can help you out with this one because this is important. So it says Northwest Arkansas woman arrested for allegedly working as a nurse under a false license. A Northwest Arkansas woman has been arrested for allegedly using someone else's information to get local healthcare jobs despite not having a license or obtaining a medical degree. Alicia Flanagan, 55, of Bella Vista, was booked into the Washington County Jail on Thursday, April the 25th, 2024. According to online records, she is facing 2 counts of practicing medicine without a license and 2 counts of non-financial identity fraud. Non-financial identity fraud is a Class D felony, while practicing medicine without a license is a Class A misdemeanor. Court documents show that the warrant for Flanagan's arrest was first issued on November 13th of 2023. She was booked on Thursday At 10:40 a.m., she was released on a $10,000 bond at 12:19 p.m. An affidavit says that on June 6, 2023, the director of nurses for Springdale Health and Rehab called the Springdale Police Department to report that a former employee, Flanagan, had been practicing medicine without a license. The director got a call from the Arkansas State Board of Nursing and was informed that Flanagan had been fraudulently using credentials of Alicia Pierce, a nurse from Virginia, in order to get nursing jobs. Flanagan was employed at Springdale Health and Rehab under Pierce's credentials from September 6th of 22 to January 1st of 2023, according to court documents. So she just barely kind of made it out of that probationary period. See, so that would have been October, November. Yeah, she just barely made out of it. The State Board of Nursing was made aware of this when Flanagan applied for and started working at North Hills on May 4th of 2023 using false credentials. The affidavit said the nursing board then contacted Pierce, who reportedly had no idea her information was being used. And this is, again, where I say, if you do not have identity theft protection, we need to talk, because I can help you with that. And so, because I do have that in place for just this very reason. Nurses, you need to protect your license. You need to protect your license. Court documents note that Flanagan does not have a nursing license, and that while she did briefly go to college, she does not have a degree or certification. Flanagan admitted to working at Springdale Health and Rehab and not having a nursing license during an interview with detectives. Arkansas State Board of Nursing records show that Flanagan was issued a cease and desist on November 30th of 2023 for being an unlicensed practitioner. 5 News reached out to Springdale Health and Rehab and got the following response from Joe Perkins, who is their representative. The lady in question worked for us for a relatively short period of time, and we discovered that her license was fraudulent. We reported the fraudulent license to the authorities, of course, and when we discovered that fraud, we terminated the relationship with the lady. That was, I think, more than a year ago. When asked how these kinds of things happen, Perkins said this person just had the appropriate credentials to create a fraud for a short period of time. Once again, we're the ones that discovered the fraud. Her court date is scheduled for May 13th. And so I don't know if they did a background check, if things were flagged that way. I'm not sure, but the State Board of Nursing contacted them and said, hey, wait a minute, this person's not a nurse. So again, nurses, protect your license. And that's scary when you think about anybody can search online and get your license, right? Anybody can do a free search and get your license number. And up until recently, you were able to get your home addresses easily on state websites. So be very careful about this, okay? So here's our next story. It's coming from Health Exec. And this is a story that's been now going around the internet. So I wanted to share that. And this is best and worst states for nurses in 2024. So nurses, perk up. It says comparing all 50 states on 20 metrics of job satisfaction for nurses, WalletHub has landed on a familiar favorite for the top spot. There must be something good in the coastal air at the northern extremes of the contiguous 48, because Washington State landed at number 1 for the 3rd consecutive year, and Maine is close behind as number 2, also for the 3rd straight year. WalletHub's popular best and worst lists are more serious exercises in comparison shopping than they might sound. For example, this year's metrics included such objective criteria as job openings for nurses per capita, average salaries, mandatory overtime restrictions, and the quality of nursing homes. The 20 metrics were roughly grouped into 2 categories: opportunity and competition, and work environment. Also buttressing the project's authoritativeness is the consistency of its results from year to year. This year's top 10 has 9 returnees from last year. The newcomer is Connecticut, which nudged Texas. Here are the best states for nurses in 2024, according to WalletHub's methodology. Number 1, Washington. 2, Maine. New Hampshire. 3, Montana, New Mexico, Oregon, Minnesota, Wyoming, Connecticut, and Arizona. If you want to know where Indiana stands, Indiana was about 32 on the list. So we're not the bottom. Woo, I guess that's great for Indiana. So as for the worst states, Wallet Hub found the bottom, populated by Mississippi, Oklahoma, Alabama, Arkansas, and dead last, Hawaii. So here's the thing. Hawaii nurses just went on strike, and people were like, oh, they make such great money, but the cost of living is so high. So if you want to read that full report, head on over there and you can look at it. But again, it's great to, not great where we stand, but better than being in the end. All right, so good job being mediocre, Indiana. Okay. All right. So let's go back to Iowa for a second. And this is coming from the Des Moines Register. It says Bondurant Nursing Home settles lawsuit with a family of women who died of hypothermia in 2022. Now, I'm bringing this up because we covered this story, and I didn't remember what it was until I started reading through the story today in preparation for the show. And I remembered the story. So I thought, let's come back and talk about it so that we can get to a little bit of closure on what happened in this full story. It's a very tragic case. So it says a Bondurant Senior Care Center, where a woman froze to death 2 years ago, has settled a lawsuit by the woman's family. Lynn Stewart, 77, died January 21st of 22 after she was found unconscious and suffering severe hypothermia outside a locked exterior door at the Courtyards Estates at Hawthorne Crossing. Stewart had been living in the dementia care wing of the facility, and a subsequent investigation found that she had been able to exit the building unnoticed despite multiple alarm systems meant to detect wandering residents. The center was fined $10,000 for numerous breaches of safety regulation, and a worker responsible for the memory care wing that evening later pleaded guilty to dependent abuse. Courtyard Estates and its owners were sued in January on behalf of Stewart's estate, as well as that of her daughter, who died in 2023. On Thursday, the lawsuit was dismissed after the family informed the court that it had reached an undisclosed settlement with the defendants. An attorney for the family told the Register that the terms of the settlements are confidential. No attorney is listed representing Courtyard Estates. The settlement doesn't mark the end of the litigation related to Stewart's death. Another Courtyard Estates employee who was working the night Stewart got out, but was assigned to another wing, filed suit in 2023, claiming she was wrongly terminated despite following policies. She alleged Courtyard was scapegoating her and another Black employee while ignoring errors by white workers, including senior managers, that contributed to Stewart's death. That case remains pending. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because one, it's a shame that this ever happened. And my first thought was, y'all didn't count the residents, y'all didn't do like a walkthrough and account for everybody. I'm not sure what happened, but what's concerning is that I don't know all the facts of this case, but it seems to be there's more fallout from this. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. If there's something more that comes out, I'll let you know. But they did settle that case. So I wanted to at least put a closure on that. But now there's this other incident of where alleged racial discrimination played a part in this. So we'll see what happens. All right. Why don't we go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come right back with more news. Job that no longer fulfills you? Is your nursing job no longer the fun-filled adventure you imagined? Find your passion again through nurse entrepreneurship. Step out into the light and come feel the sun. Join the Nurse Shark Academy today at thenurssharkacademy.biz and come feel the sun. All right, let's get into our next story. Minnesota's new labor board votes for nearly $23.50 an hour minimum wage for nursing home workers. It's a little bigger so I can see that. There we go. Today has been a long time coming, said nursing home worker Nessa Higgins at a news conference after Minnesota's first Labor Standards Board voted on April 29, 2024 to raise the minimum wage for nursing home workers to $20.50 by hour by 2027. Minnesota's new Workforce Standards Board took its first significant vote on Monday, agreeing to raise the pay floor to $23.49 per hour on an average in 2027 for nursing home workers, while guaranteeing 11 paid holidays. That's amazing. The worker and government representatives on the board approved the minimum wages without the support of the board's nursing home industry representatives, who abstained, which rightly they should. It says, we know that there's a crisis facing the nursing home industry. There simply aren't enough people willing to do this work for the wages that are being paid, said Jamie Gully, chair of the Standards Board and president of the SEIU's Healthcare Minnesota and Iowa Union, representing thousands of nursing home workers. The Democrat-controlled Minnesota legislature voted last year to create the Nursing Home Workforce Standards Board, one of the first like it in the country, empowered to set minimum pay and benefits for workers across an entire industry. The 9-member panel, comprising 3 workers' representatives, 3 state government officials, and 3 industry leaders, approved 4 minimum wages for nursing home staff. By January 1st of 2027, certified nursing assistants in nursing homes will earn at least $24 per hour. Trained medication aides will earn at least $25 per hour, and licensed practical nurses will earn at least $28.50. All other workers, including subcontractors, will earn at least $20.50 per hour in 2027. All told, nearly half of the nursing home workers will see their wages rise, with the first pay bump scheduled for January 1st of 2026, when the average minimum wage will rise to $22 an hour, according to analysis by the State Department of Labor and Industry. Under the law, the board must adopt standards that match or raise wages for a majority of workers within various geographic regions and occupations. The minimum wage rule must still be drafted in its final form, submitted for public comment, and then reapproved by the board. Workers and labor advocates say the wages will improve care for the state's elderly and disabled by attracting and retaining more quality workers. But nursing home leaders say the wage mandates could tip their balance sheets into financial insolvency. The higher labor costs come as the Biden administration plans to phase in minimum staffing requirements for nursing homes, mandating a registered nurse be on site 24 hours a day, and for residents to each receive around 3.5 hours of nursing care per day. So according to Paula Rocheleau, who's a member of the State Workforce Board and CEO of Partners Senior Living, Option says this is going to be a perfect storm. We don't have enough nurses in the state of Minnesota to meet the mandate right now. I think it could close nursing homes. Or maybe you'll have more nurses choosing to work in nursing homes. The challenge for nursing homes is that the government payment rates take at least 15 months to catch up with nursing home costs. And in Minnesota, nursing homes are not allowed to charge private patients more than what the government pays. So in essence, that means nursing homes will have to raise wages months before they'll be able to raise their prices. A state cost analysis forecasts that the state will need to pay an additional $6.9 million in fiscal year 2029, the first full budget year when the higher wages are factored into reimbursement rates. The federal government will also need to pay a similar amount per year. The wage increases will lead to a 0.8% price increase, according to analysis by the SEIU. Last year, the Minnesota legislature directed $300 million in grants to nursing homes to shore up their finances and increase worker retention. More may be needed when the legislature takes up its 2-year budget next year in order to compensate nursing homes for higher labor costs until reimbursements catch up. So we'll keep an eye on that, but good job there. More on practice issues, and I apologize for the coughing today. It just started, and I think it's my allergies kicking up. Nurse practitioners advocate for lifting practice restrictions. This is coming from Jefferson City, not here in Indiana, but this is in, I want to say, Missouri. Yep, that's it. Okay. So lawmakers don't often see nurses lobbying in the Capitol, but they've had a weekly presence in the building this session as a lobby for independent practice for advanced practice nurses or APRNs. Among them is Marcy Marks, a nurse practitioner at Columbia Allergy and Asthma Specialist. We just want to take care of the patients, Mark said, and we should be allowed to. Missouri is one of a handful of states that require APRNs to be in a collaborative practice agreement with the physician to provide services. And yes, Indiana is one of those states still. I've just heard back from Capney that that bill did not get a hearing in committee. Most other states allow APRNs to practice independently after completing a certain number of practice hours, ranging from less than 1,000 to more than 6,000. Some states, such as Kansas and Iowa, forego this requirement and lets APRNs practice independently immediately. Missouri is operating under a 1993 law mandating the collaborative practice agreements, regardless of how long a nurse has worked. The restrictions were temporarily lifted during the pandemic, but were reinstated in 2021. APRNs have been vocal about how the restrictions harm health care access in rural communities. For instance, in Southwest Missouri, for one reason or another, the physicians left and they couldn't find another one, said Susan Opperman, who has been a nurse for 47 years and advocates strongly for the lifting the restrictions. Several hundred patients suddenly don't have a provider because the nurse practitioners weren't allowed to practice unless there was a physician to be in collaboration. Among restrictions in the law is that the nurse's practicing location cannot be more than 75 miles away from their collaborating physician. So again, according to the law, you couldn't even find a provider in another state to help you out. It has to be someone in that state and fairly close by. So that question then becomes, what do you do for those rural situations where there aren't doctors close by? The mileage restrictions were eased significantly after Governor Mike Parson signed Senate Bill 157 last July, allowing nurse practices to collaborate through video communication via telehealth. However, this isn't an ideal solution due to a lack of internet access in some communities. Everybody out in rural Missouri does not have satellite, Opperman said. They don't have the money for that. They don't have the internet. They don't have all this stuff. Telehealth is not the answer to everything. APRNs still face other burdens under the current law, including collaborative practice fees they must pay their physicians. Nurses must also spend 30 days with a collaborating physician before they can begin to see patients independently. That requirement means 30 days of patients being pushed back, Marks said. Physicians are expected to complete audits of their nurse practitioners' work and documents every 2 weeks. Marks had a positive experience with her own physician. Other nurses, also with positive collaborative experience with physicians, have raised concerns about the restrictions. I work in an inpatient setting where our collaboration with physicians is very natural and very necessary, said Chris Reber, a nurse practitioner from Kansas City. I have a lot of friends that work in the outpatient setting, but they may only talk to their collaborating physician once every couple months. As a result, many nurses have chosen to leave Missouri for states that allow full practice authority. Last year, we lost so many nurse practitioners out of Kansas City, and they simply drive across straight lines. Arkansas is a little restrictor, but still, they have all the potential to be independent. Carla Burkle, another nurse practitioner, said that such moves are a means for APRNs to do the work they've studied and trained for. It's very hard to practice in a state that has a competent professional authority and competent professional authority and restricts our ability to give access to care. Hannibal from Nebraska, a state which allows full practice authority for APRNs after 2,000 hours. Thomas recounted difficulties beginning to work in Missouri. I've had to go through all the hoops and lessons in order to get my prescribing authority. The nursing restrictions have created travel barriers for patients, with many from rural areas having to make trips to cities to receive care. I lost a lot of patients that just no longer received the specialty care that I gave them because they couldn't afford to come to Columbia for their care. Sometimes that's emergency care, like an asthma attack, so it puts them at risk for needing more health care resources and even death in some instances. Burkle said that physicians retiring has led to a big physician shortage, and it's only going to get bigger. So most of the support has been bipartisan. These APRNs, House Bill 1773, the most recent bill related to the matter to pass out of committee, sponsored by Representative Chad Perkins, a Republican for Bowling Green, was amended to allow nurses to practice independently after 6,000 practice hours. The original version of the bill had 2,000 hours. I think we do see the need for this on both parties. So Representative Patty Lewis, Democrat from Kansas City, the only nurse in the legislature. We have enough healthcare deserts. We do not have enough healthcare providers, but we have an aging population. Despite this, most proposed legislation to lift restrictions has failed to get past the finish line. Many APRNs say this is in part due to groups lobbying to keep the laws in place because they benefit from them. Charity Galangi, an assistant teaching professor at the University of Missouri at St. Louis, oversees the women's health nurse practitioner training program in the area. She called such opposition a power move. Physician lobbyist groups work to ensure control of the predominant market share. They don't want to have what they would refer to as competition. Keeping these laws in place is helpful for certain groups, but it's not helpful for the people who need the care. Opposition from House Majority Leader Representative Jonathan Patterson, Republican of Lee's Summit, who is a physician, is also to blame. Patterson's position allows him to determine what legislation is called up for the House floor for votes. While HB 1773 was approved out of committee, it was not on the House calendar for consideration on the floor. So again, this is what you're having. And okay, let me stop here. Let me say this, because as I'm thinking about this more and more, could it possibly be that this physician has a conflict of interest as a board chair, as they're directly opposed to this? Because it, as a profession, it would directly benefit them to keep things status quo. So my question is that right? Should he have maybe let somebody else take over? I know they have the right to determine the agenda, but this is where this lobbying gets really out of control and egregious. So I'm just thinking about this. If the shoe was under their foot, and it was a nurse who happened to be in control of the legislature, and she made sure it got on there, people would say, well, she did it because she's a nurse. But then you would also have the opportunity for your fellow representatives to vote for this, yes or no. So would it be fair for someone who has a vested interest in the outcome to determine the fate of the bill and not allow the entire body to vote yes or no? Those are some questions that I have. So those of you that are in the public office and you're nurses or physicians or whoever, any representative out there, let me know, chime in, because just as I'm thinking about it, on the face of it, it just sounds like this one person is able to block things. And is that fair when they have a vested interest in blocking it? You see what I'm saying? That's what makes me wonder. Allow the committee, or allow the legislative body to vote on it. If they voted out of committee, allow them to say yes or no, and be able to say, if they're going to support it. Because then, if it doesn't pass, then you have further, I don't want to say ammunition, but further interest in whether or not you want to put that person back in office. And so I'm going to say, nurses in Missouri, if you really want something to happen and you're in his district, y'all need to turn out. Y'all need to turn out when he runs for re-election. That's what needs to happen. This is where you have to have boots on the ground for this. Because what the medical society, they have more money. And so they're able to put in more lobbyists than a lot of the nursing organizations are. They don't have the financial backing. So I'm going to say this. If you want to get boots on the ground, this is what's going to have to happen. And y'all going to have to vote. Y'all going to have to vote. So in an effort to circumvent challenges to lifting nursing restrictions in the legislature, activists are gathering signatures for an initiative petition to put the question of lifting the restrictions to a vote. So now that this is another thing they're going to do, they're going to pull out a ballot. All right, we want to get it on the ballot and say what the people say. So there are some worries with it. He says that if we do get it on the ballot, Missouri is notorious for having a very, very lower voter turnout, which could backfire on us. If it's voted down, then the senators and representatives come back and say, well, the people voted on it, they don't want it. Regardless of these concerns, Marks said the signature collection process has been important for educating people on the issue. So I think if you put it out there, I think people will understand. Hayden says that nursing restrictions are part of how healthcare nationally is a complete mess. He pointed to 2 hospitals in Mexico and Fulton owned by Noble Health, which closed following technical and financial issues, leaving residents of those towns with fewer healthcare options. The building in Fulton, Noble Health Callaway Community Hospital, still sits vacant as a stark reminder of Missouri's rural healthcare crisis. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to follow this story, but yeah, good luck to you. So I want to go to this story because it's not in the U.S., it's across the pond, and we're going to go to Scotland. This is from Nursing Times, and it says Nurses Union frustrated as Scotland's first minister quits. And at first glance, it doesn't sound like this will be a nursing story, but it is, and we'll find out. So, nurse leaders have described their frustration at the current political turmoil in Scotland as the country begins its search for a new first minister. The Royal College of Nursing, or the RCN, in Scotland criticized the ongoing political distractions and instability and urged the Scottish government to refocus on the pressing issues facing health and care. It comes as Humza Yousaf announced yesterday that he will be stepping down as the Scottish National Party, or SNP, leader and Scotland's first minister once a successor has been found. He quit ahead of 2 motions of no confidence in the Scottish Parliament, which were triggered by the collapse of a power sharing agreement with the Scottish Greens. Mr. Yousaf confirmed in a statement yesterday that he would remain as first minister until a new SNP leader was selected. He held the position for just over a year, taking over from his predecessor, Nicola Sturgeon. The power-sharing deal with the SNP and Scottish Greens collapsed last week after the Scottish government announced that it was going to scrap a major climate target. However, being unable to form a coalition with another party and with 2 confidence votes in him at his government table, Mr. Yousaf announced that he would step down as first minister. Speaking at a news conference yesterday at, I'm going to say Boot Hill House, Edinburgh, Mr. Yousaf said, after spending the weekend reflecting on what's best for the government and the country I lead, I have concluded that repairing our relationship across the political divide can only be done with someone else at the helm. I intend to stand down as party leader. I have had the honor of serving in the government for almost 12 years in a variety of roles. Although I am sad that my time as first minister is ending, I am so grateful and blessed for having the opportunity so few are afforded to lead my country, and who could ask for a better country to lead than Scotland. Prior to becoming the first minister, Mr. Yousaf also served as Scotland's cabinet secretary for health and social care in 2021. During this time, he was instrumental in preventing nurses' strike action in the country by leading direct pay negotiations with health unions. To date, Scotland continues to be the only country in the UK to have avoided strike action from nurses during the ongoing national pay dispute. In addition, the implementation of the 2023 to 24 pay deal means that nurses in Scotland remain the best paid in the UK. So following his resignation, nurse leaders have now called on the Scottish government to refocus on the issues facing health and care services in the country. RCN Scotland Director Colin Pullman said nurses and nursing support workers across Scotland are under pressure, understaffed, and many are at the breaking point. Sound familiar? They are frustrated by the ongoing political distractions and instability. They want to see the Scottish government get to grips with the workforce crisis that is facing our health and social services and focus on delivering safe and effective care for the people of Scotland. So I say this to say it's not just here, folks. And I'm glad nurses are stepping up. All right, so let's come on back to the good old USA, and we're going to talk about Philadelphia in just a moment. Why don't we take our final break before we wrap up our show? Tired of feeling trapped in a job that no longer fulfills you? Is your nursing job no longer the fun-filled adventure you imagined? Find your passion again through nurse entrepreneurship. Step out into the light and come feel the sun. Join the Nurse Shark Academy today at thenurssharkacademy.biz and come feel the sun. All right, and so let's get on to our next story. This is coming out of Philadelphia, and it says, these two Philly area nurses are on a mission to get nursing recognized as a STEM field. And so I thought this was very important. And I've been following these ladies on LinkedIn. And I was like, hey, great. They've got some write-up and some press, and I'm excited about this. So I wanted to share some light on this on our show. Two nursing professors from the Philadelphia area are leading a national coalition seeking to convince federal agencies to recognize their field as a science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM profession. And I'm sorry, can I just stop here and say, what profession isn't STEM, like nursing? You have to do all those things. If you ever had to try to put on a wound vac on a patient who's got a wound in a very difficult situation, that's a lot of engineering that you have to use, the technology that we have to use, the math that we have to use, calculating dosages and all. Yeah, look, there's a lot that goes in it. So yes, nursing is very much a STEM profession, and I will be so glad when we are included. Thank you very much. But I digress. Let's go on. It says nurses currently lack such recognition from most government agencies, which prevents them from accessing millions of dollars in grants for STEM-specific research and other opportunities like the White House's $1.2 billion investment in STEM in 2022. Marian Leary and Rebecca Love, who co-chair the Nursing is STEM Coalition, will submit a petition letter at the end of April asking the Department of Homeland Security to designate nursing a STEM profession. DHS is the first target of their campaign for universal recognition among federal agencies. Currently, only some agencies, such as the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, recognize nursing as STEM. The Inquirer spoke with Love from Villanova University and Leary from the University of Pennsylvania about why the STEM designation matters to nurses. So this is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, by the way. STEM professions have benefited from priority status by funders and government agencies over the past decade. For example, DHS allows foreign students to stay longer in the U.S. after graduation if they have obtained a STEM degree. So wouldn't that be great to help with the nursing shortage if we've had nurses that were trained here that they could stay here and work? And the National Science Foundation sets aside millions of dollars in grants every year for STEM professionals. There has also been an emphasis by government, universities, and private employers on creating pipelines for women and people from underrepresented communities into STEM fields. STEM is basically building the careers of the future, said Love, a visiting nursing professor at Villanova, who also runs a nonprofit focused on ways to bill and reimburse for the care nurses provide. Woohoo! And that's another initiative, again, that I'm supporting as well. So if you aren't following these two ladies on LinkedIn, do so. But I digress. Okay. So the Department of Homeland Security has recognized a growing list of STEM professions over the years. These include social psychology and global health. For example, outside of traditional bench science and engineering jobs, social psychology. No shade to them. But they get it before nursing? Okay. Nurses apply science, technology, math, and engineering in their daily work, says Leary, the director of innovation at Penn nursing. Nurses learn pharmacology, manage medications, and operate technology at the bedsides of patients every day. All the work that nurses do, both clinically and outside the bedside, that's all science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's very much true. I mean, even to how to safely transfer a patient, that's engineering. That's using technology. These are things that we do. Leary and Love have heard stories from nurses who had to return grants or lost fellowship opportunities because their degrees aren't considered STEM. The impact extends to nurses with doctorate degrees like Leary, whose research is based on statistics. Leary believes gender bias is a factor. She said that the fact that about 90% of nurses are women could contribute to the decision to overlook nursing as a STEM field. It's a female-dominated profession living in a world of STEM that is a majority male. The national coalition that Leary and Love co-chair is about 2 months old. They view their application for STEM recognition by DHS as a bellwether, having noticed that other agencies followed when DHS previously designated a profession as STEM. The application is due at the end of April, and DHS is expected to announce a decision in August. More than 100 nursing organizations and leaders in the field signed on to the letter, and I do believe I do remember saying this, so kudos. Love hopes the STEM designation can help with the funding to sustain the profession after many nurses left bedside care positions after COVID-19 pandemic beginning in 2020, and hospitals are struggling with a nursing shortage. I think that would go a long way for us getting the recognition, and also the fact that if you have access to greater research dollars, that's going to help those nursing professors, because nursing professors are still historically underpaid when you compare them to other professions. All right. There's just so much news. There's so much news today. Oh, goodness. All right, but I'm going to go to Ohio because I think this is important. This is important. It says Dayton Daily News, Ohio nurses demand action on nurse to patient ratio bill. Ohio nurses and a grieving local family are pushing for what they say is an integral workplace safety law that has gone untouched since it was introduced to the legislature 7 months ago. The state law was proposed in honor of Tristan Kate Smith, a Dayton area nurse who wrote a scathing rebuke of the nursing industry before she died by suicide in August of 2023. So I apologize. I did not get a chance to say trigger warning. I'll just let you know, please, again, if you're having suicidal thoughts, do contact 988. Also, you can call 911 if you need to. And you can also go to your nearest emergency room. But I wanted to say that, and I apologize. I forgot to let people know about this. So, this is important, so I am going to make sure I cover this story. So those of you who remember that she wrote this suicide note that says, a letter to my abuser, talking about working in nursing. So her father was joined by his 2 surviving daughters and over 100 working nurses and advocates to pressure lawmakers into advancing House Bill 285, which seeks to establish minimum nurse-to-patient ratios in hospitals across Ohio and eradicate some of the industry's hardships that negatively impacted his late daughter. Under the bill, a nurse could only be assigned 1 patient in an emergency trauma unit or operating units, 2 patients in critical care units, 3 patients in emergency departments or combined childbirth units, and 5 patients in many other specialty care units. Many bedside nurses in Ohio are overworked, according to a survey from the Ohio Nurses Association, which organized the event. Signs throughout the State House atrium last week attempted to put that plight into perspective. 7 out of 10 direct care nurses are considering leaving the bedside. 58% of nurses left the bedside due to patient care loads. 42% of those nurses would come back if Ohio law required minimum staffing standards. So it says it's a bipartisan bill, but it has great opposition. There are folks who are concerned about how you're going to pay for this. It takes the control out of the hospitals. It takes control away. And again, it's a bill that's asking for equity and fairness. Rogers believes discontent among the GOP has been the main reason why House Bill 285 hasn't moved forward. It's a very, very challenging time in legislature when we have a party that's fighting amongst itself. Representative Tom Young, representative from Washington Township, sits on the House and Health Provider Services Committee where the bill is stalled. He said the delay is not an indication that no one is paying attention to the bill. Really? Are you sure about that? Obviously, Columbus is kind of backlogged with everything, he said. Young explained that it's a critical issue, but questions whether the legislature should get involved in regulating a free market issue. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Wow. Eh, Okay, let me move on. It deserves a hearing to start discussions, but at this point, I don't know how we solve the nursing shortage over the short to medium time frame. And you've not asked. Anyway, Ganbari said the time the bill has stalled in the committee has given himself and other sponsors the opportunity to round its bases. We've been meeting with some of the folks that have been openly opposed to the bill, the Ohio Hospital Association and others, toward trying to work toward a solution that we can have our committee meetings and move forward. Due to the lack of hearings, there's been no public opponent nor proponent testimony filed on the bill. But Gunbury said the OHA views the staffing minimums as a non-starter, despite supporting other aspects of the bill, such as provision that creates a loan to grant payment program would attract more nurses to the workforce. Again, when are you going to listen to nurses? And this is why nurses are angry. You know, if you look at my latest blog post and the latest newsletter, and this is why nurses are angry, because you have people that are not listening to the people that deal with this every day. So I'm hoping that they give some traction and movement with this. Yes, but it's so frustrating sometimes. It's so frustrating because in the long run, we would have much better health outcomes if you had adequate staffing. We all know this. The research is there. Quit putting your head in the sand, Ohio, and move forward with this. Anyway, that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. All right. Okay, so let me get on to a couple other things because we are coming over our time. And it says, travel nurse who left rural jobs says NL is pushing people out of the public health system. This happens to be in Newfoundland, so over across the way from us. Canada. It says Stacy Button felt unsupported and overworked as a licensed practical nurse in a rural Newfoundland and experienced fraught with so much stress and dejection that she left her home and full-time job to become a travel nurse. She says she now has job flexibility, is treated with respect, and gets paid far more than she did back home. As well, Button says that if the Newfoundland and Labrador government doesn't make major changes to the public health system, it will be challenging to persuade many other nurses to stay in Newfoundland and Labrador. You can't have both. You can't expect people to do this crazy hard job and then also try to rein them in and be like, squeeze them as tight as you can. Healthcare needs nurses more than nurses need to work here. That is like the best quote. Yes. And that goes across the board. A Globe and Mail report in February revealed that provincial government spent $36.5 million on nurses from private agencies within months and shelled out cash for travel nurses training, cable bills, and a variety of other expenses. Newfoundland and Labrador Health Minister Tom Osborne has called travel nurses a necessary evil on numerous occasions and has said that there are full-time nursing jobs for every nurse in the province, but that nurses should temper their expectations because the available jobs may not be in the specific units or locations that they want. That is the most tone-deaf comment I've heard in a while. Temper their expectations. So it sounds almost like you're saying, shut up and dribble, stay in your lane. Or however you want to say it. I'm just saying, Mr. Osborne, I would probably rethink how you phrase that. It goes on to say, Button says, you can't, say we don't want agency nurses, that they're the worst. And then also be like, well, we're also not going to give our home nurses anything that they've been asking for. So they're the worst. Yeah. Around 10 years ago, Button moved with her husband and 3 dogs to take a permanent full-time position at a hospital in Springdale near Green Bay in central Newfoundland. She previously worked as an LPN for a year in her hometown of Corner Brook. In Springdale, she says she worked mostly a 9-bed acute care ward and was the only LPN alongside one registered nurse on the overnight shifts. Although LPNs have a different scope of practice and schooling requirements than registered nurses, Button said she was expected to complete the same task as her RN counterpart. She says the two of them had to do everything from patient admissions to helping in the emergency room. According to Newfoundland and Labrador Associate Public and Private Employees, which represents about 2,000 LPNs in the province, the maximum amount registered nurses can make is $71 an hour, while LPNs make around $32 an hour, less than half of an RN's top salary. If you walked into the nursing station, you wouldn't be able to tell who was who. And yet you're looking at someone who's making almost double what you're making. Button said she worked 12-hour shifts for 7 days within a 2-week period, but says she was asked to work overtime almost every day she had off. Button says she said the hospital was understaffed, so she was often overwhelmed with work and received little support from management. I just think that people want 3 things from their job, right? They want respect, they want flexibility, and they want to feel like they're being paid for what they're worth. And I just didn't feel any of that here. So there's more to this story. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and I won't be able to get into all of that because I do want to at least I had several of these stories, and I may come back to some of them next week. But I had some additional stories here, and one of them was nurses making a difference. And, I love to end on positive notes. So I'm going to go ahead and read this one because I'm a big supporter of nurses in business, and I'm impressed by this. This is from nurse.org, and it says travel nursing was lonely. MedVenture app is changing that, and so a nurse has stepped out and made a difference for those that are there. For travel nurses everywhere. So here it says, in a recent episode of the Nurse Converse podcast, Emily Chen, the CEO and co-founder of MedVenture app, the free all-in-one hub to unite and empower all traveling healthcare professionals through community, resources, and tools, offered invaluable insights into her journey from a travel nurse to tech entrepreneur. She discusses the steps she took to launch an app for healthcare professionals. Through her experience, she highlighted 3 crucial pillars essential for launching a new idea or business: market research, problem validation, and team collaboration. She shares the upcoming MedVenture Camp, an all-inclusive in-person summer camp for healthcare professionals and their friends. So I think that is wonderful. You are our nurse making a difference for this week. If you want to hear more about our story, head on over to the podcast on or the article on nurse.org. And I want to thank you for tuning in. That's going to be it for all of our news tonight. I do want to get to some announcements. As I said at the top of the hour, we will not be having the challenge next week, as I said I was going to have a challenge, because I just didn't feel like it was ready. And I don't like to put anything out there that's not ready. But we will be doing some special things for next week because it is Nurses Week, and we deserve to be celebrated. And so we are going to have a special episode of the podcast. It's going to come out with my interview for the Black Nurses Association of Anderson. And they're going to talk about the history of that organization. So that will be coming out. And then also I'll be doing a special event for those on our Nurse Shark Academy in our challenge group and on LinkedIn and here on YouTube. We'll be doing a special event for Nurses Week. And we'll talk about we're going to talk about the heart of the nurse and entrepreneurship and being entrepreneurial in wherever you are in your life, in your career. So we'll be talking about some of those things. You'll be seeing that getting up before next week. So we'll be posting that. So keep an eye out for that. And then I want to also say, check out our blog post on the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. Check out our blog post where we talk about being entrepreneurial in our thinking, wherever you are, and some of our pioneers that were entrepreneurial. So we talked about Mary Seacole, who happens to be one of my heroes in the nursing space, Mary Seacole, and I love hearing about her story. She was an entrepreneur, she was a nurse, she was an inventor, she was a artist, she was a businesswoman, she was well-traveled, she was an author. There's so much that she did, and she deserves to be celebrated, and we should be saying her name a lot more often. So look for those things that are coming up. Also, check out our calendar. Make sure that you see on the NurseSharkAcademy.biz and on Baxter Professional Services HealthEducation.com. We also have our TB class that's coming up, CPR class renewals are coming up, CNA training classes, home health aid. There's a variety of things that we have available to you. So you'll be getting more information about that as well. Again, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Nurses, are you ready for more? My mission is for you to own your seat at the table of nurse entrepreneurship, gaining confidence, skills, and the freedom to live your life on your own terms. Assisting you in achieving your goals through tailored advice, continuous learning, and a collaborative approach is at the heart of everything I do. Stop being eaten alive. Come feel the sun. Be a nurse shark.